Hi everyone, welcome back to the next day of our 12 days of SwitchUp, and today we're going to be looking at the best ports released in 2023, but not necessarily the best ports, the best games that they've ported.
There's two ways you can take this. Some of these are the best ports of 2023. Some of these are fantastic games that have been ported to the Switch in 2023. We'll kind of talk about the difference between the two as we go through the list.
Consummate professional. It might sound like we're just running out of games to mention, and that's partly the case. But here we have 10 games that were ported to the Nintendo Switch in 2023.
Big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Untold Tales.
Thank you, Untold Tales. You've sponsored every one of our 12 days of SwitchUp, and the Untold Tales publisher sale is here. It started on the 11th of December, and you can buy some really decent games with discounts of up to 90%. Today they'd like us to highlight Bang on Balls Chronicles. Now if you missed it, Glen and I actually did a full video for this one, and we were surprised by how good the gameplay was. You essentially start out as a ball, rolling around, a bit like De Blob, but you're in a film studio and you go into the different sets, and that's what the levels are. So you go into one that's prehistoric, one that's space-based, and within those you've got lots of physics-based platform adventuring, but there's also combat in there. There are bosses. You have to fight this big Viking ball on the beach. Now at the moment, that one's down to £13.49. There is also multiplayer online. If you've got a couple of you that own it, you can play together in co-op. And it has the feeling of those old school N64 adventure games, but modernized and running in the Unreal Engine. Visually, I wouldn't say it's the best looking game that we've got on Switch, but the level design and gameplay is really, really good. As I say, Bang on Balls Chronicles is $13.49 or your regional equivalent. All the info in the description and the top pinned comment. Cheers to Untold, the sponsors of our 12 days of SwitchUp. Alright, let's start with a bang then, and Hogwarts Legacy, which recently released on the Nintendo Switch. I think it's fair to say that this is one of those miracle ports, as far as from a technical perspective. I don't know if you'd played this one previously, Glenn?
I hadn't, no I haven't. I have got my daughter it for Christmas, so.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Oh, very good. Yeah, so it has the full game in there. There are a few caveats in terms of the Nintendo Switch port. There are a few more loading transitions and things like that. But some of the more taxing elements, like flying around on your broomstick, which you do like to do when you're a wizard or a witch, still run remarkably well. Yeah, you can see the obvious things they've had to reduce, but overall, as far as ports go, I'd say this is probably right up there with one of the most impressive of the year.
Nice.
Then we had Pikmin 1 and 2. So I think you could say a bit more about these.
Yeah, so obviously, as we said at the beginning, this is a mixture of the best ports in terms of the technical aspect and the best games that have been ported. Now, these are not necessarily difficult games to port, but they are fantastic games that it's lovely to have here. So the first Pikmin released a good 20 odd years ago now, and it centered around you crashing on a planet and having to find the pieces of your spaceship with a time limit in terms of days of how long you had, and these strange Pikmin creatures helped you in that respect, and they could pick things up for you and fight the enemies. And Pikmin 2 kind of took that element and ran with it and made it bigger. There were dungeons and what have you, and they both hold up very well to this day. They have added pointer controls which were included in a port to the Wii for these games. I don't think it's the ideal way to handle gyro, the gyro aspect. I think it could have been done better. Pikmin 3 did a better job, but in terms of great games that have been ported to the Switch, these are well worth buying in this bundle.
Lovely stuff. Then we've got Red Dead Redemption. That got a lot of hate before it came out because people were like, well, you should have done more with the port. And actually, when it released, it's in a cracking state in the fact that it looks amazing. It's running at native resolution. It's running at 30 FPS, completely fluid. There were actually later in the game a few bugs and quirks, so there is potentially a little bit more work to do, but they've also released quite a few patches for this one as it's gone on. But yeah, Red Dead Redemption also includes the DLC, and I think it's fair to say it's one of the best ports we've had. Which takes me on to Remnant from the Ashes.
Yeah, Remnant from the Ashes, which is a third-person shooter with some almost Souls-like elements in terms of some of the ways that you play, and obviously certainly the difficulty as well. This is a great game.
Yeah.
Really, so much fun to play, especially if you're playing it in co-op, and you can play online, of course, as well. Now, in terms of the technical aspect, I was playing in handheld for a lot of our time with this game, and I must say towards the end, in handheld, the game was chugging. Like, it was struggling. So that's just something to bear in mind, but in terms of being a great game that's been ported to the Switch, well up there.
Absolutely. And then we have Borderlands 3. So Borderlands 3 was a recent release, and when I was doing the capture for the frame rates, I just couldn't believe that there were certain bits that ran at 60 frames per second. You'll probably hear about this one in another video, and it deserves a bit of attention, I think, because it's another one where I don't think many outlets covered it, because, you know, it's quite a big game, and I don't know, there's so much going on at the moment. But as far as ports go on the Switch, no one expected it, and then when they did see that it was coming, they expected it to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And the fact that it isn't, it runs well enough, and it's the Borderlands 3 you'd hope for, is nice. I will say there were some crashes when it launched, quite a few actually.
Right.
But now they've added a load of patches. I'll be revisiting in another video, so go check that out.
Nice.
But yeah, hopefully it runs more smoothly.
Lovely. Next we've got Metroid Prime Remastered. Now this is another GameCube game, following on from the Pikmin games that we mentioned earlier. Another game that certainly enhances the Switch's library, but this is one where they have kind of gone that extra mile and really shown what they can do these days with an older game, you know. It is technically a remaster, as the title would imply, but in terms of the graphical upgrades that have been implemented, it certainly looks more like a remake. And it is, even today, having this kind of first-person Metroidvania is still quite unique. There's not many games that have done it since, you know, and the gameplay holds up fantastically well.
Yeah, it really does. Seeing those remake elements like newly textured areas and even some effects, it looks like a new game rather than an older game brought across, you know. It's very impressive. So then we had Metal Gear. Now we had the Metal Gear trilogy, the first, second, the third game, and we also had the, I think it was 4 of the retro games.
You had the MSX games, possibly the NES games as well.
People lamented the fact that Konami didn't really do much in terms of any remake or really remaster elements for the first game. It's just like the PSX version brought across in all its like 380 by whatever glory, you know, very low res is what I'm saying. Whereas then they brought the HD version of the second game across, and that looks really nice, you know, the HD remaster. But then they didn't have it running at 60 frames per second, even though I noticed in my review of it that there were certain segments where it would suddenly remove the frame rate cap that they've obviously put onto it and go up to 60 FPS for a few seconds, which is a bit annoying, really.
Yeah.
A bit annoying.
It's a bit strange, isn't it?
It is a bit strange.
Again, obviously great games to have on the Switch, not necessarily the best ports. It's difficult, isn't it? Because we've done so many of these lists now that generally we've gone back through the years and picked the best ports. Yeah. Unquestionably the best ports. We wanted to try and keep this one a bit more relevant to this year, which means a mixture of the two. But at the same time, it's quite interesting to see the games that have been ported over fantastically well.
Exactly. And
the games that are good games still, but the ports aren't as good, you know?
Yeah, and ones that did come across, I'd say, in a very good shape are the Pixel remasters, the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters.
Yes, yeah, so this is the 6 games, isn't it? The first 6 Final Fantasy games, which span from the NES up to the Super Nintendo, of course. And these, obviously, they're older games, 8, 16-bit games, but in terms of what they've done to the graphics, I mean, if you look at a side-by-side comparison, you'll start to really see those intricate details. Things like the backgrounds, you know, the water moving, the grass, etc. It does just breathe new life into these games.
And then more recently we've had the Batman trilogy. Now, as we know, one of them, Knight, it is Batman Arkham Knight, isn't it?
Yep.
Ran badly. So when you get into the Batmobile, as I mentioned in my performance review, it just tanks. Now, it's not fair to say that the whole lot are bad, because they're not. The first and second game actually run really well, with City being the best by a country mile, probably because that was on the Wii or Wii U. essentially, from what I understand, is they took that version. And it was much more easy to get that running well on the Switch because they'd already done all the hard work.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But yeah, if you like the games, or if you've never played them before, I do still think the Switch is a viable place to play them. It's just you have to know going in that Night is a bit janky.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was always going to be the one that caused problems, wasn't it? Because of its launch, albeit on PC, not console, but it was the one with a question mark over it, wasn't it?
Absolutely. All right, we're going to fire through a few now, just so I can... They're more like honorary mentions, and they do deserve to go in there. We've had things like Dave the Diver, which was on PC before. Really, like, it had like outstandingly positive reviews. I wasn't sure what to make of it initially, and then like 30 hours later, I was like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Really, really good game. Doesn't need too much technically to keep it running well, but it did have a few slowdowns and things, and they have patched it up since, which is nice. The Outer Wilds will have come out by the time you see this video.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know how that's going to perform just yet, but it's likely they would have got it running okay. But again, it's another one that did have technical problems in other areas on other platforms.
Well, it's been delayed on the Switch for about 2 years, isn't it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Multiple times, multiple delays. So, yeah. Mortal Shell on the Switch, yeah, it doesn't look great. It really doesn't. There has been a recent patch, so that's one I'd like to revisit in our all patched up series. Turok 3 and Quake 2, both from Nightdive Studios. They've got to go on this list. You know, they've got to at least be mentioned just because Nightdive have done such a good job. They have videos. We've got like 4 videos of these. Go check them out. They've done brilliant. They have their own engine actually for bringing these old games across, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
So kind of like drag and drop. There you go.
Yeah.
But then they end up adding in a load of new lighting effects and things and gyro and all the stuff that I enjoy. Now, we did have Goldeneye, didn't we? At the start of the year. Was it start of the year? Feels like a long time ago now.
It was this year. I can't remember exactly when. But yes, it's certainly on the Nintendo Switch online app now, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's one of, I guess, the killer online apps that you can get. I think it's a shame you can't buy this separately, if I'm honest. I think it's one that a lot of people would have just bought. They could have made a bit of bunts there. Then we had the Persona 3 and 4 games. I think it was Asdin that reviewed these for us.
No, this was Holden did these for us.
Oh, Holden Green.
Yep, this was way back when, wasn't it? Like January,
yes.
Right at the start of the year. Yeah, great games. I mean, 4, I think, is the kind of more loved of the two. I played a bit of 4 on the Vita, 4 Golden, and again, just great additions to the Switch library.
And then finally one that I think I'll give a few more moments to, it's Company of Heroes. Now, this released way back in the day on PC, and it's been so nice playing this with my son as he's a bit older now.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not an old boy, he's still under 10, but he just couldn't believe the things that people had gone through in the war.
Yeah.
He was like, well, what is this? Like, thinking it was some like fantasy game, you know, as they're on the Normandy beach landings. He's like, what's this? And him seeing the realization of what people had to go through and the horror of it, really. And I don't mind him seeing that. I think it's quite good for him. You know?
Yeah, I suppose like when we were kids, I remember celebrating 50 years of VE Day at school. I mean, that's 30 years ago now, you know. It is becoming almost like ancient history to a degree, isn't it? And it's, I suppose to kids of this generation, it really, you know.
And I think this is Feral Interactive, I want to say, but they did a brilliant job with this port. Like, it runs flawlessly. I had one complaint about the cutscenes running at 20 FPS, but I did in the back of my memory think, I'm sure it used to do that on PC, and it did, weirdly. So great games, brilliant. And actually completely redid the controls to work well on a controller, which is very often not the case for strategy games.
Absolutely.
So there we have it. There we have 10 games, best ports, best games that were ported, whichever way round you want to have it, that were on the Switch in 2023. But please do let us know your thoughts. Are there any that you think should be on here? Stick it all in the comment section. Absolutely. Ho, ho, ho. Hope you're enjoying the series so far. Let us know in the comments any ports, as Glenn said, that we missed. If you want to save yourself some money, all the info is in the description. And also, remember, we are giving away that Switch OLED. We are indeed, Again, just comments in the comment section every day, and we will pick someone towards the end of this series. Lovely job. And just once more, a big thank you to the sponsor of this video, Untold Tales. Lovely stuff for all things Switch all the time. Keep your Switch up. Not high seer, normal seer. See ya! Hi everyone, welcome back to Switch Up and to our 12 days of... Sorry, no, If you have to start again, you just have to give me 5 seconds to look the right way. So generally I'm looking at you because I'm waving. Gazing. Yeah, gazing. He's gazing. All right, for all things Switch all the time, keep your Switch up.